Thursday, September 24th. And one place the weather is getting active is in Europe. We've got the Arctic Express coming in from the northern Atlantic. There it is right there. That's a big train of cold air coming into France. And it looks like the leading edge of that front is running about like that, near that line of showers. So things are going to cool down in Europe. Let me just show you the rest of how that progresses. I know it's kind of hard to see the advance of cold air, but maybe I can switch over to that chart. The 850 millibar temperature is probably the best for portraying that. Yeah, here you can definitely see the front as well as the north side of the warm sector. And bringing that forward into the weekend, there's how things look during the day on Friday. And then on Saturday, we can see that system up north occluding in Germany. Meanwhile, yeah, that cold air just blasting southward. All these blue temperatures here are below zero at 850. So that can be getting into that temperature range for winter precipitation in some of the higher elevations. And there's a quick look at the temperatures Saturday morning. All of the pale green colors you see are temperatures in the 30s Fahrenheit, and these probably have some 20s in Scotland. Out in the Alps, they're definitely going to get that snow. Let's check out the surface map. There's how things look at this hour in Europe. I had to split it up into two separate systems. It looked like the main batch of warm air was down here in Italy. Conditions do cool off as you move up north into northern Italy, and then we get into some of the cooler air in Germany. And I think there's that separate boundary in that area. And the main flow of cold air, it is heavily modified. It's getting heating from the ground, and that's steepening the lapse rates. Very cold air aloft at 850, 700 millibars, contrasting with that warm ground, the fresh incursion of polar air flowing towards the southeast, and you get a very steep column in the lowest 1 to 2 kilometers. And that's what's going on there, some extensive air mass modification, and that gives you very gusty winds, ragged-looking clouds, and surprisingly, good visibility, because that will disperse all of your pollutants into the free atmosphere. Anyway, let's check on things in the U.S. There's how things look in Texas this evening. We've still got northerly flow in place, but we're finally starting to clear out the residual moisture left by Tropical Storm Beta. And that's what all this cloud is. This is a big mass of stratocumulus. So anyway, that's on its way out, and we've got northerly flow in behind it. Out in the Rio Grande, you can see a few thunderstorms popping up in that region. And what's happening is the flow from the north kind of curves anticyclonically like that. And we also tap in a little bit of moisture that gets entrained into that easterly flow. And it ends up out here. And as a result, we get spectacular thunderstorms around Marfa and Marathon. They go up in the higher elevations. They sprout during the late afternoon, create some thunder and wind, and then they're gone by evening. Elsewhere around the country, we've still got the wildfires going out there in the Sierra Nevadas. There they are right there, but it does look better than a couple weeks ago. Then down to the south, we do have a tropical storm. There it is. That's Tropical Storm Lowell. Looks like maybe a few hundred miles from the Baja California coast. That has winds of 45 miles an hour and a pressure of 1003 millibars, so it is on the weak side. And that'll continue moving towards the west. The cloud field definitely indicating a lot of closed cells, and that would tell us that it's passing over cool waters. There's the map for the southwestern U.S. Don't see a baroclinic system here. This all looks like pretty much a large continental tropical air mass. You can see we go from 104 over 39 around Lake Havasu City all the way to 87 over 53 in Nebraska. Now, we do pick up a little bit of moisture as we go further east, but I don't see evidence of a dry line. Other features, well, we've got this ridge following in the wake of Tropical Depression Beta. That's due to the very cool conditions, helping to raise the pressure along that ridge. But we can see the southerly flow trying to reestablish itself over the lower plains, and that should put an end to this northerly flow that we see in the panhandles. The visible satellite showing a very quiet pattern. However, we do have a couple fires breaking out in northeast Utah and southern Wyoming. And as we go up to the north, things definitely do get active. This band here is almost certainly associated with the polar front jet. This band of clouds here, or I should say this patch or cluster, that looks like cold air advection clouds, so there's probably some upper level troughing in that area. Could be a occluded low, maybe a cutoff low. No, I'd say probably an occluded low, drifting around maybe in British Columbia. Down to the south, we know that this area here is under the influence of a subtropical ridge. So already I get an idea that the jet is probably running about like that, and that would put the surface systems just to the south. Now, the water vapor imagery is interesting. That indicates an upper level system working through that area. See that right there? That looks like a comet cloud. So we may see that on the upper air charts there. Might have to take a gander at that and see what's going on. So the upper air chart, what does that show? Well, we can see the jet stream energy. Yeah, that definitely shows up. You really have to go up to the higher layers to actually see that. The locations can be a little bit different. And you can see that's up there from western Oregon up to northwest Montana. Let's see what the European model has. A little bit of a difference there. See that difference there with the GFS versus the European model? It's got the wave a little further south down in this area here, southern Oregon. So that makes me wonder, maybe the models are a little bit slow handling this wave. All right, and for the northeast, continuing on with the water vapor imagery, our jet's going to be right in here from western Tennessee up to Pennsylvania. That's because the drier colors are over here. This is subsidence, and then the ascent is on that side right there. So we're getting the upward motion. And there's the current chart. And yeah, that corresponds pretty well. But it does look like there's this area of maybe elevated convection in Wisconsin. Those are some very mushy anvils. They're definitely anvils, but not too impressive. Let's check out the surface chart. Oh, we forgot to do the northwest U.S. Okay, let's go back and do that. Yeah, that's definitely a well-developed frontal system there, moving through the northwest, and some very gusty air coming in from British Columbia. However, we do have a warm front approaching Minnesota. Let's see, where's the moisture at? That's one of the things I wonder about this time of year. 60s dew points are going to be running kind of like that on up towards Wisconsin. Yeah, that'll be supporting the thunderstorms going on there. And we can see that the high plains just kind of falls into this lee side trough. Very hot weather, 91 degrees at Rapid City and 93 further south. And we can also see that that little wedge of warm air goes all the way up into southeastern Saskatchewan, where it's 84. And then we see nothing like that around. So that right there, that's the triple point, and that's the reason I drew the fronts like you see right here. So that's going to be a potential area for baroclinic development. The northeast map looking like this. Now obviously we can See that there's some sort of front through the Great Lakes area, and that's where the moisture axis seems to impinge on the boundary. See those 60s coming up in Iowa, and very likely they ride up over the top of that frontal surface there. A little bit cooler once again in the northeast and down to the south. This is not a tropical air mass. It kind of resembles one, but it's a little bit mild, and dew points are only in the 50s. So that's just kind of a old Canadian air mass that's in the process of modifying. And in the southeast U.S., there's the true tropical air in Florida and southern Alabama. The northern edge of it forms this wedge coming up towards Birmingham. So, yeah, along that warm front, I might expect some chances for severe weather. Now, this is the remains of Tropical Storm Beta. It's still there. Looks like a 1007 millibar low. Maximum winds sustained 25 miles an hour. However, it has become very baroclinic, and so we're getting these temperature contrasts between this 86 degree reading, 84s offshore, and 60s off to the west. So, yeah, that hurricane has evolved and joined its brothers up there in the northern latitudes. Yeah, there's one little high up there in the Carolinas, and yeah, that's going to be the pattern for the southeast. The satellite loop, well, it's getting to be nighttime. I'll just pause it here. The low clouds will show up as these smudgy grays because it's very warm. The higher tops, like you see with this convection right here, that's going to show up more of a white color. And we can see the front right there moving through Birmingham. Looks like a couple storms trying to develop up there near that wedge of warm, moist air. And a quick look at the radar does show that the storms are quickly evolving, but they do look linear at this time. SPC going for a marginal risk. And just checking on the storm reports from yesterday, the area we identified was good, but we could only squeak out a little bit of wind, and that's it. So it's probably fortunate that we didn't get much severe weather developing, although there was the potential. And then just a quick look at the weather ahead. Jet axis coming into the northwest, and then we get this incursion of troughing and cold air coming into the high plains early next week. That's going to be the 28th, 29th. Yeah, that's really digging in there. And that will bring cold air southward into the southern plains. That's interesting. Oh, even shears off a little cutoff low in Alabama. So what kind of temperature anomalies are we looking at? There's 850 temperature anomaly. Let's see how that pans out. Warming on the plains for Saturday, that's downslope. And then the next system comes together. Looks like it does have Pacific origin, but it will be entraining some of that Canadian air, and that works its way southward. And we get some evaporative cooling, helps strengthen that air mass, and that cold air takes the plunge southward. And we got to take a look at those temperatures. Yep, bring in 50s all the way into Texas, 50s and 60s. Yeah, it's not a super cold air mass, but it will definitely keep things cool and push the moisture out back into the Gulf. So probably kind of a dry start to next month. And there's October coming into the window. So, yeah, this is the European model, and it kind of did very well with the previous system. The GFS kind of wavered back and forth before falling into line with the European model. So the fact that the European model is putting this out there on the plains, very likely that's probably what we will actually see. And that's all for this edition of Forecast Lab. Thank you for joining. Have a great evening, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.